Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has signed four executive orders, one of which is a suspension of the 5% excise tax on telecommunication services and the excise duties escalation on locally manufactured products. Now, among them is the Finance Act, which effective date variation order 2023, which defers the commencement date of the changes contained in the Act from May 23rd, 2023 to September 1st, 2023. Now, according to the special advisor to the president on special duties, communication and strategy, Delia Lake, the signing is to ensure that the act aligns with the 90-day notice period required by the National Tax Policy 2017. Now, here are the four new executive orders signed by the president, which one of them, of course, the Finance Act Order 2023, which defers the commencement date for the changes contained in the act from May 23rd, 2023 to September 1st, 2023. Customs Excise Tariff Amendment Order 2023, which shifts the commencement date of tax changes from March 27th, 2023 to August 1st, 2023.
We also have the suspension of the 5% excise tax on telecommunication services and excise duty on locally produced products. We also have the suspension of the newly introduced green tax on single-use plastics and the import tax adjustment levy on certain vehicles. President Tinubu has assured Nigerians that there will be no further tax increases unless robust and wide consultations are conducted within the context of a coherent fiscal policy framework. To further explore this conversation, we're being joined by Abiodun Kayode Ali. He's an economist and tax manager at PwC Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
There's a lot of conversation here that can easily fly over the heads of the layman. So the question is, what does this mean? What is the impact of this tax? Lately the policy has been quite sensitive. We've been seeing increase in cost of goods and services. So does this in any way affect the average businessman in Nigeria? If yes, how?
Okay, so what this simply means is that there is going to be a delay in the increase of some certain costs that the average man and people would typically use. So if you look at the telecommunication service, currently we have a lot of our population making use of telecommunication services, either in terms of phone calls or either in terms of data, right? So the implication of that 5% excise duty would simply mean that the cost of making phone calls or the cost of using data would simply go up. That's with respect to telecommunication services. Then if you look at the single-use plastic, right, the green tax that is going to be levied, if you consider some of the things that we get whenever we go to retail shopping markets, the bags, those bags we get, as well as plastic bottles, right? So it simply meant that there was going to be a 10% charge, it's 10% duty on it. So all these costs will be suspended. That's exactly what these orders are simply making reference to. And these taxes, these duties, some of them actually came in recently towards the twilight of the administration of the former president, right? So given the fact that some of these taxes have been halted, you are going to see not necessarily a reduction, but you'll see a suspension in the proposed increase of these products that are being purchased.
Clarify, which of them has been halted and which of them has been, set in motion. The telecom tax is going to take place, is going to kick off from the 1st of September, I believe. And then the green tax, is that being suspended or that is being put in motion?
Okay, so there are two things that are being suspended. The first thing that is being suspended is what is referred to as the Finance Act. Now, the Finance Act, it has to do with some certain fiscal laws, right, that are being amended through that act. Most of them have to do with taxation, right? So for companies, your company's income tax, tertiary education tax. So tertiary education tax, for instance, was increased to 3%. I'm sure you must have heard in the news when there were complaints about the increase in this tax, right? So for that tertiary education tax, which is contained in the Finance Act, the implementation date should have been May 28th, right? But given the fact that the public only got to know about it after the former president had even left office, the implementation date was moved to the 1st of July by the tax authorities. So this is one of the things that are going to be suspended. The Finance Act changes will be suspended till the 1st of September. The other thing that is going to be suspended has to do with the Customs Excise Tariff Amendment Order. Now, within this order, we have things such as the telecommunication service that is has a duty of 5%. That's something else that is also being suspended, right? The excise on telecom tax. And the reason for this is because there's been lots of confusion, right? I'm sure you must have heard in the news when even with the introduction of the 5% duty, we heard where the Minister of Digital Economy and Communication came out to say that it was halted, but there was no documents, right, to back up that claim, right? So even with the fiscal policy measure, there was another document that was released called the Fiscal Policy Measure of 2023. That document still maintained that there was that telecommunication tax, right, that telecommunication duty. So what this simply means is that this has now been suspended. Now, in terms of the halts, like you said, one of the things that is going to be halted is the grain taxes, right? So that grain tax, which is going to be imposed on the single-use plastics, that's one thing that is being halted. And another thing that is also being halted has to do with what's it called? There is also an import adjustment tax that is going to be on some certain motor vehicles that are imported. Now, these motor vehicles, if they have an engine capacity of about 2,000 cc and 4,000 cc, there is the 2% duty as well as the 4% duty that is being imposed on them respectively. This also one of the duties that are going to be halted. Then also, I must say, part of these duties that will be suspended, you have what is referred to as I'm trying to remember it again. You have there were these taxes that we had, right? These taxes that we're going to have on tobacco, alcoholic drinks, right? Now there was a roadmap that has been agreed in the fiscal policy measure of 2022. Right. Now, that roadmap saw that for the years 2023 and 2024, there were going to be increases, right? There were going to be increases in the duties applicable for tobacco as well as alcoholic beverages, such as your beers, your spirits, and your wines. Now, what happened was that with the introduction of a fiscal policy measure of 2023, we saw an increase, an escalation, a further increase in what had been agreed for 2023 and 2024. So that now has been taken out of the way. It's not going to hold any longer. So we are still going to be consistent with what was existing in the past. So those are some of the things that have been halted and suspended.
I want to also ask, the impact of these, on the businesses. You've given us a clear picture on what is being suspended, what is being halted. But what we find is that in some places, in anticipation of an increase, the increase in prices of goods and services would almost immediately kick off. How soon do you think the market will start to feel the impact of this suspension and halting? And also, does it really, really make any significant difference from what currently is?
Yes, it does. It does quite a lot, especially for the manufacturers. I'm sure you heard of manufacturers making complaints about the numerous taxes that they pay, right? So the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria came out to state that they face currently about 33 different taxes. So we see a situation whereby the burden of all these costs sometimes go into the cost of those products themselves. So their cost of production is one thing that is definitely not going to go up any further, given the fact that they've gone through a lot. If you consider most of the challenges that they've seen in the beginning of this year, do you want to talk about the Naira scarcity that came as a result of the currency design? It actually impacted on their cost of production. And also, you also want to consider the cost of gaining access to foreign exchange. So these are some of the things that has impacted their cost of production and has also impacted on the actual product. So most of these products that they eventually churn out, you see a situation whereby those products are reduced in sizes, right? Or the prices has to go up. So what is going to happen is that things are going to be as they are currently, not exactly like there is going to be a reduction in the prices of these products. But what is just simply happening is that there's going to be there won't be an increase in the costs. I think that's one key thing that we need to say. Then also in terms of confidence of investors into these industries. Now, if you remember what I said earlier about the fact that there was already an agreed roadmap with respect to how tariffs would increase on some certain products, and government through the fiscal policy measure of 2023, changing that agreed roadmap. So what is going to happen now is that there's going to be that signaling effect that the government is actually consistent with its policies. And all these things have a ripple effect on the economy in terms of employment. But for the common man, one thing that is guaranteed is that there is not going to be a further increase in the price of the products that they actually go for.
All right. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning. I think the one that climate activists would not like the suspension of green tax at all, because it seems like we're the only ones lagging behind. The UK, Rwanda, other countries have kicked off. You would pay extra if you had to use single-use plastic, but we're just going to have to wait and watch how things unfold. Thank you for your time with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And of course, yes, a lot of Nigerians are going to be living in fear, every time they, see that three-letter word tax, because the new administration basically came in, firing on all cylinders, increasing taxes here or there. And, it's also one of the things that, have been highly expected of the new administration, that taxation will increase in different, sectors of the economy.
Maybe this one will boost confidence, the fact that he's suspended and halted. So maybe this act will boost confidence, at least for the manufacturers. I think it was 2 weeks ago we did read in the papers how import duties on vehicles had increased by 40%. With this, I want to believe that this would also affect that. So those of you who plan to buy new cars this year might still be able to. Do I say you or us? I wanted to say us, but
I mean, it depends on what you're suspending and
yes.
what you're, because the suspensions a lot of times, are really, they've been put in motion since, the previous administration. What he's only done is extended the time with which that they will kick off. Exactly.
I mean, it's not like they're even taking it off. Even with this vehicle one I just talked about, they're just adjusting, like he was mentioning, 2,000, 4,000 cc, depending on the capacity, for example, of your car.
Motorcycle, yeah.
Well, it is well. Like they will say here in Nigeria, it is well.
We'll see where it leads.